Hello, today we will be flying from Kathmandu in Nepal to Lukla in the Himalaya area. So we will use the Flightgear simulator with the Bombardier Q400 airplane. So I know that the Q400 is operating from and to Kathmandu, but it is for sure in reality too big for landing in Lukla. But it has some very nice features and some good advantages. For example, a strong thrust reverser, which will come very handy when we are landing on the short landing strip of Lukla in the mountains. So in the simulator it works pretty well if you take care of some things like descent rate and speed management. So let's go into it. Let's jump into the cockpit. So we will select auto start. And unlike other airplane models in Flightgear, the auto start does not start the propellers yet. This is something that has to be started manually, but there is a very nice starting sequence implemented in this airplane, so we will use it. And the auto start sequence, it brings the electronics alive, and now we're ready for start. We just have to select. We select the left engine and press start, and we can hear how the left propeller comes alive, and we can do the same with the right propeller. So as the propellers are moving now, we should activate the parking brake so that we don't start rolling yet. We're not yet done. We activate the HUD. The active parking brake is indicated here in the panel. So we have to configure the autopilot to show us the route to... We will be flying VFR, but nevertheless on this monitor the flight computer will show us the way to Lukla, otherwise we can get lost in the mountains very easily. So we use the route manager. Lukla is very easy to remember. It's Victor November, like Kathmandu, but then Lima Kilo for Lukla. We'll have a travel speed of 250 knots. It must be runway 6. It's a one-way strip here. You can only land in the direction 06, and you can only start in the opposite direction 24, because otherwise you would hit the slope there. You will see it later when we're on short final what that means. So we start with the default pattern. Now there's a little bug. I have to close and reopen the route manager, and then it will work. I know from experience that we need 18,000 feet to jump over those mountains. And we select runway 06, it's the only one that works here. Take a default approach pattern. No stars approach. Everything's set, we activate, and then you can already see that on this monitor our route is already shown, so we will just strictly follow that route. We will use a little autopilot, but we are not following the lateral navigation. We will do it manually. So we use this autopilot panel, and we also enter a default heading. In this case it's 105. When I enter 105 as the default heading, you can see that our default heading, the dashed line, is parallel to the route manager's line. So we will go up to 18,000 feet with a climb rate of 1,500 feet per second, 260 Mach, and this is it. So we need some flaps for takeoff. Go to flaps position 2. I look from outside so that we didn't forget to close the door. Both engines are running. So, seems we're good to go. Let's deactivate the parking brake. Okay, parking brake warning is gone. We're good to go. flying offline today, so no ATC support. We're on our own. Let's rev up the engines to 40% until they are both synchronized and stabilized. And now we can go to full throttle. I think we should rotate at around 120 knots. A little bit of rudder action needed to keep the plane on track here on the middle line, but it's fairly easy to handle. This Q400 airplane is very well mannered, it is easy to handle. So now we rotate at 120 and retract the gear and retract flaps to position 1. Make sure we have sufficient climb to get over those mountains, so this will be a very mountainous flight, so we always have to take good care of our altitude and always have to keep visual guard that we're not approaching those mountains too close. So even when you're using the autopilot, you constantly have to monitor the surroundings, not to get too close to those mountains, otherwise this could be a very short flight. So we will simply manually follow what is indicated here on our monitor. So we will follow the solid purple line, and once we turned to the right to 105 degrees, then the dotted line and the solid line should match completely. So let's retract the flaps completely and set the auto throttle. Now the auto throttle is active and should accelerate the plane. So we have to find a good balance between climb rate and acceleration. It's a little bit too slow at the moment, we're climbing too steep. So we need to pick up more speed and therefore give away a little bit of our climb rate, so that we reach our travel speed of 250 knots. To reach the approach pattern of Lukla, that will be approximately 70 miles, and I don't want to bore you with a straight flight here of 70 miles. So once we've reached our target heading of 105 degrees, I will activate time compression, so we will do a little cheating. Some time cheating to speed things up, not to get bored. Of course, during that 4 times time speed up, we have to pay close attention to the mountains, not to hit one of those mountains. So we can already start turning right. If we bank too much, there will be quite early bank angle warning, but this plane is so easy to handle that you can bank up to at least 45 degrees without risking a stall here, so it is really easy to handle. So you can mostly ignore you can fly steep angles and ignore the bank angle warning here. The plane will still fly very nicely even when you have a high bank angle. So we're almost aligned. Now let's turn a little bit more to the right. Okay. And now we're more or less, now we're nicely aligned. The dotted line and the solid line on our monitor, they are almost the same now. So speed is also okay, we're already above 200 knots, that's okay. Now we can activate the autopilot and do some heading hold and a flight level change to 18,000. We have to of course check the climb rate, should be high enough so that we jump over those mountains here. So the heading looks very good. So what we will do quite soon is to speed up the time compression and once our approach pattern is 20 nautical miles out, I will stop the time compression again. So at the moment we have hardly any climb rate. Have to go up a little steeper. 1200 should do. So let's cheat time compression. Okay, and now I think we can go. We look outside. We'll see we're racing over those mountains, so we have now with time compression we have more than the speed of sound. But that's just to save a little time here. Let's check the fuel. So tank is half full. That should do it easily to bring us to Lukla. It's not a very long flight, and here you can already see the approach pattern here for the final approach to Lukla. So we will have to turn left, and when we enter the approach pattern, when this entry point is 20 miles away, then I will deactivate the time compression, and I will also deactivate the autopilot, because this final approach you should rather fly it manually. It's just more precise and more safe if you do this operation manually and not leave it to the autopilot. Also, you have to make sure that you reduce your speed early enough. We're now getting a little bit too fast. Auto throttle, let's reactivate it. Now we're still speeding up. I will deactivate the auto throttle and slow down the plane a little. Even with 4 times time compression, the plane is still pretty easy to handle. So normally no nasty surprises from the Q400 airplane. Okay. Time to stop compression. And to slow down even more. This speed management will be very, very important when we're on short final. If the speed is too high, you won't make it, and you don't have too many options for a go around. If you decide to go around, you have to do it very early, because the runway ends in a very steep upward slope, so no going around over the runway. If you're on the runway, this means touchdown or bust. So if you want to go around, you have to make the decision very early, and that's usually the case when you haven't reduced your speed enough. So at the moment we have more than 200 knots, and on the short final, on the last phase of the approach, it will be only 80 knots, so we have to make sure that we're slow enough to do a smooth touchdown on the Lukla runway. Okay, we can reduce altitude a little. Flight level change to 17,000. Today it's a little shaky. Maybe the weather simulation gives us some wind. Very scattered clouds, that's good, because we need good visibility to aim for the Lukla runway. In dense clouds it is almost impossible, at least for me, for an experienced pilot. Maybe not, but for me it would be a certain disaster. So we can reduce the speed even more. Let's have a look. We're still high enough. So at the end of the flight we will receive a lot of ground proximity warnings, because we have to hover over those mountains quite narrowly. So, but let's not bother. This flight to Lukla, it's never completely risk-free. So we're already prepared for that. It shouldn't bother you too much. Let's not get nervous. So we're approaching more and more our turning point into the into the approach and landing pattern. I believe that the real landing pattern for Lukla is way different, so what I did was just very primitive. I just entered from Kathmandu to Lukla with a standard start and landing pattern, so I believe the real route would be significantly different. Maybe that's something you can check out with videos from real airplanes flying that route. But for us, this simple route will get the job done. So we're already activating flaps position 1. I think in this thin air up here, under normal circumstances you would have to adjust the mixture for the two propellers, or it's the propeller attitude, but I know from experience that here the default setting will also work fine. We don't need to do adjustment and make things more complicated than we need to. So we have to prepare for the left turn. We deactivate the autopilot and get it away. And from now on it's all manual, so also the altitude control, that's now all in our own responsibility. So we just strictly follow what the monitor indicates. And a little bit more flaps to make sure that when we descend we don't pick up too much speed again. We want to keep a low speed from now on, so that we don't have to reduce speed in a panic mode when we're close to the approach to it. So time for the left turn. You can, for example, hear the bank angle alarm.
Bank angle, bank angle, bank angle, bank angle.
As I said, you can ignore it. So this plane is very nice to handle, and it can digest quite some bank angle without getting unstable. Let's take it easy. So we have to lose quite some altitude, because as far as I remember, Lukla is at around 9,000 feet. We're now at 16,000, so we have to still lose a significant amount of altitude. So we use more flaps for that, not to pick up too much speed. Flaps position 3. And in the end we will also use the extended gear to create some significant drag to keep the airplane from speeding up once we have to descend towards the runway. So I think we can already see the runway over there. It is very pale. Maybe I can fold up the... Yeah, here it is. This light green thing, this is the slope. So let's lose some more speed. So vectoring looks very good. I think if we get the speed managed correctly, then this will be a successful attempt. So more flaps. We're on full flaps now. So that looks quite nice. We're on 14,000 feet, so still have to lose some altitude. It's getting a little shaky. We have to pick up some speed now. Okay. And as we can see the runway already, we can extend the gear. It's nicely animated. Make sure not to touch those mountain slopes with your gear. get too close to them. I think we're doing pretty well. Go down a little more. So we have to lose more speed, although we're descending. Our target is something around 80 knots, 90, 80 knots. That should do it. Still a little high. So let's lose some more altitude. We're a little bit above the glide slope. In the end, on the short final, some rudder activity will be needed to keep your plane on track. So we're left of the runway slope, we have to go more to the right to correct that. We're a little bit fast with 120. That's gonna be a close one. I think we're gonna be okay, because now we've lost significant amount of altitude. The angle is quite good. And now we're slowing down. We're at 100 knots. Target would be 80 knots, I think. We will make it very soon. Ah, that looks good. That's one of the better approaches. And then we use those thrust reversers. And we'll easily make it. Activate thrust reversers and get ourselves off the runway. Do a short right turn, let's not crash into that plane. And get ourselves out of the way. So, activate the parking brake. Here we are, the Tenzing Hillary Airport in Lukla, Nepal. Hope you enjoyed the video. See you next time for another Flightgear video to another nice airport. Goodbye.